Hello, join us as we go live to Venezuela. The ordinary session of the National Assembly is underway. Let's listen.
Invasions, coups, and the most sophisticated and new ways that we know of electoral fraud to attack and take the political power in countries like Ecuador, for example, when there was an electoral fraud for drug trafficking to continue. And that is why we haven't hesitated in sustaining the truth of Venezuela and reaffirming our truth. Everything else is a group of lies to be able to justify an intervention, and as it was well denounced by the president facing the countries of the OPEP and the OPEP Plus, it is a lie, a group of lies to take the resources, the energy resources of Venezuela, of the greatest reservoirs of petroleum that is in the whole world. It is the reservoir of Venezuela, the only one with that volume, that amount of petroleum that is wanted historically by the United States of North America. And that is why when we studied the history, we know what has been to have a policy, a sovereign policy on our energy resources, or the policies of giving them. The first one who defended the sovereignty on the energy resources was our father liberator Simón Bolívar with the Decree of Quito in 1829, when he said the mines of any kind correspond to the republic. Bolívar had that nationalist vision of the resources, the natural resources of Venezuela. And from then forward, from the happening of petroleum known by our original people as Mene, and then with the first petroleum company of Venezuela in 1878, the Petróleo of Táchira, already the path was being able to see. The first one, we were born as a petroleum company with two fundamental characteristics that today are more alive than ever. The first one is that this company was formed with Venezuelan men and women, not with foreigners. It was with the labor strength of Venezuelan men and women. And the second is that Petróleo of Táchira had a vocation, an international vocation. The kerosene that was produced in Táchira was exported to Cucuta. That was how our petroleum company was born, and from there it has started, and it has gone through a path filled with difficulties among those who have had a position of delivering, and those who have had a vision, a strategic vision for the development of the Venezuelan people, of sovereignty and defense of the resources. Yesterday, the President Nicolás Maduro subscribed, as you know, his special plan of development and investment for the lake of Huánuco, which is the biggest lake in the country. It was Guzman Blanco who delivered it to the United States, Hamilton and Phillips, and 2 years later they decided to sell it to another company of the United States, the Bermudez Company, very well known. And that is how Venezuelan concrete reached the streets of New York, the main avenues of Washington, Pennsylvania Avenue. It also reached France. Also the Elysium Champs. It also reached Brazil and the world. But yesterday, President Maduro made an extraordinary announcement, the plan of development with national and international investment of the Lake of Guanaco, and the 25% is for the projects of the communes and the communal councils. It is the asphalt for the people. It is our natural resources for the development, the national development. But the Lake of Guanaco has a lot of history, because the first dispute that is done between a transnational company and a Venezuelan government, it is done in the presidency of Joaquin Crespo, precisely for the Lake of Guanaco, and it was an international dispute. And I make reference to, because I was saying that we have walked a very tortuous path in the defense of our resources, our energy resources, and what is happening today, this new stage of the history of Venezuela. After, we all know what it meant, Juan Vicente Gomez, in the history, but in the energy history, it returned in the first lackey of the United States and the delivery of our resources of concessions without any kind of tax, without any kind of prices. Our history will be vindicated with Isaías Medina and with his policy of 50-50. He went precisely to the U.S. Capitol to defend the law of hydrocarbons of Venezuela when for the first time it was established benefits to Venezuela. Well, Isaías Medina, as you know, did the hydrocarbon law. Then it was overthrown in 1945, that law. Why is it relevant? Because it puts us in what we are living today. Then it came, I am talking in general of the most relevant facts. Then the dictatorship of Pérez Jiménez came, and the Puntofilismo as well, and on January 1st of 1976, Carlos Andrés Pérez Obregón nationalized the petroleum industry. This is a company that was created, the Venezuelan company. It is an industry for Venezuelans, he said, and it was the great farce known as the nationalization Chucuta, because they led Venezuela the most expensive process of exploration and production, and the commercializing was still in the hands of the transnational companies, mainly the US ones, who continue to maintain internal control of our industry through technological contracts and through administrative contracts. It was the Chucuta nationalization from nationalist sectors of our country who raised the flags against what was that great farce. Then history, the so-called petroleum opening, which vindicated the concepts of Juan Vicente Gomez of delivering, that reivindicated that the petroleum of the Orinoco was carbon, and it was sold at the price of carbon. Imagine the size of that steal from our homeland until Commander Hugo Chavez came, and we can say that he reivindicated our father liberator Simón Bolívar and Cipriano Castro and Isaías Medina Angarita, and he had a policy of sovereignty. And in the year 2001, through the law, he approved the law of hydrocarbons that started the coup in the year 2002. But we were coming from the Constitution of the 1999, where it was clearly established that PDVSA is a Venezuelans, and it cannot be privatized, it cannot be sold, and that caused in our historical enemy, the United States, well, the biggest concerns and the biggest conspiracies of knowing that they were losing the control on the petroleum reserves of Venezuela, of knowing that they were losing the control on the gas reserves that Venezuela has. Imagine, and Chavez came and he said, that's not carbon, that's our petroleum, and today we sell it as extra heavy petroleum. We do not gift it away as carbon, which was the policy of Puntofilismo, of the sellout, which gave a different paint to the delivery process of Juan Vicente Gomez. And I say, this stage, then, it is the turn of President Nicolás Maduro, and you turn deputies and us, the government of President Maduro as well, to defend and never give up our natural resources and our energy resources. The President Maduro has had a policy, a visionary policy of defense, of facing the criminal blockade for Venezuela, to be able to recover the industry of hydrocarbons, and today we can show that we have been in a process of recovery of the petroleum production with our own efforts, but looking always towards the future with a goal that was set by the president for the end of this year of reaching the 1,200,000 cans as he has announced. So this is the path that Venezuela is on, under siege, threatened. It is the way of economical recovery through the effort of Venezuelan men and women who are workers of the productive union, of the economy of entrepreneurship, of the communal economy, of the industrial sectors of the country, in the union, national union for production, and despite the blockade, establishes that for the year 2025, Venezuela continues leading the economical growth of Latin America. ECLAC projects a 6%, but we already know that we are overcoming that number, and we have consolidated at least 8.5% in the PIB. Focus, as the president has said, in the real economy, in the petroleum activity, almost with a 16% in the construction, with almost 12% in commerce, with 8% in minery as well, with 9%. And we have seen the process of recovery of production. I didn't want to torment you, because if we went step by step, we would spend hours, but what we can say is that the balance is positive in the production of petroleum. It is a sustained, stable growth despite the sabotage which they have done. Despite that, we are having a sustained growth in the exports of minerals and iron. They're the biggest one of the last decade, and there's a growth in relationship to last year of 181% already towards the plan of national development. Not only the export, but also the ended products, the final products, for us to change the national productive processes to push the different sectors of industry and manufacture, the production of gold and growth, the public sector with a very high percentage as well, and the private production with a 41%. Pay attention to this, the rise of consumption in 38%, almost 39% in the growth of consumption in October compared with the year 2024. The growth of the real consumption of what is really given in the commercial sectors, and the consumption that the CENIAC was able to perceive to also have an increment in the recovery of tax in relationship to the year 2024. But when we look at the surveys that the private sector does, specifically as an industry, the capacity used of the industry grew. It is reaching almost 50%. We are coming from the year 2019, very hard moments of the blockade, in 20.6%, and this year we also have a blockade. The blockade has worsened, and we are threatened, but Venezuela says that we are not going to give up, and we continue moving forward, recovering our productive capacities. The agricultural sector in growth, I am going to say it quickly, and I repeat, if we go item by item, the chicken 13%, pigs 3%, cocoa 9%, coffee 5%, sugar 8%, rice 17%, yellow corn 52%, milk 13%, cow milk 3%, eggs 4%, fruits 122%, 26% of legumes, and other vegetables 201%. So is Venezuela more productive or not? Is Venezuela, the productive Venezuela has been emancipated. We are not subordinated to the mandates of Washington. We are standing, producing to fulfill the foods and the medicines and to guarantee the services to our population. Pay attention here. These are statistics of the United States. They recognize the recovery of the consumption of protein in Venezuela, of the chicken, of meats in the year 2025. This is the recovery. These are not our statistics. The petrochemical industry grew 4%. The production of medicines grew a 29.6%, and its growth in unities in a 17.6%. What is that due? To a recovery program and a very clear policies that are adapting according to how they want to. More blockade, more boldness, more creativity, more innovation, and more popular power to answer to the criminal blockade. The imports dropped a 9.5%, but because they were accompanied by a very clear plan of substitution of imports, as you saw that productive growth in the agro industry and the productive sectors allowed the substitution of imports and the saving of currencies, a very clear policy of protection of the national industry. And we're talking from a number of effective protection of the industry that has 14 points when we were coming from 3 points. And what we protect the most is, well, where we have the most tariffs is in the finished products to accompany the productive processes of the national industry, and for us to be able to have more space in national material and other pushes to the production. Where did we have the substitution of imports? We had it in rice, in corn, in sugar, in pastas, and in medicines, and in oils as well. There is a very clear policy of taking care of the currencies, facing a criminal policy of aggression against our homeland. There is a picture that I wanted to bring. Due to the situation, you know that they have wanted to say now that they control our airspace in a frank violation of sovereignty, because the only entity and organ authorized to control the operations, the air operations of our airspace, is the National Institute of the Civil Aeronautics, an organism of the Ministry of Popular Power for Transportation. In the year 2025 in October, pay attention how the international arrivals had increased. What do they look for with this policy that is warmongering and threatening and aggressive? They have a strategical objective, which is the Venezuelan economy. Well, President Maduro has already created a plan to guarantee the arrival of those who were outside and those who have plans of traveling during Christmas, but also the protection to the tourism plans that we have been exercising precisely in the favor of the national development and the economy. We are reinventing ourselves where they attack the Venezuelan people, counterattacks the Venezuelan people, ends up being victorious. And here we have the numbers that prove what I am saying. Well, dear deputies, this is a budget that, as we always say, in the last 2 years, it was not elaborated by Ricardo Menendez in his office. Ricardo Menendez and all of the government team had products, assemblies, over 100,000 assemblies in the communal circuits in the territory, a transformation plan, the plan of transformation of the 70s, the economical transformation to change the turn to the model that depends, that rents, to us to expand our productive capacity, where we incorporated in the productive base the economy, the communal economy, and the economy of entrepreneurship is a complete turn of our model of the second transformation of the human city, and we're going to see it expressed in the budget of the third transformation for the security of our country today threatened, but the people organized defending and guaranteeing our territorial integrity, our sovereignty, and especially the tranquility and the peace of our people. The fourth transformation of the social development and the system of missions and great social missions. The fifth transformation, the transformation of the politics, where the political power is there in the territory, where the popular power is consolidated as the column to lead the destiny of Venezuela. It is not a group, it is not a dome, it is not an elite. It is the popular power who today has the political power and exercises this transformation. The sixth transformation of ecology, of science, technology, and the respect of the rights of our Mother Nature, and a seventh transformation, which is the geopolicy that has us in this situation, and as our Bolivarian diplomacy of peace has deployed internationally in the defense of Venezuela. Dear deputies, the budget that has been designated for the year 2026 extends to the amount of billions of dollars, 785 bolivars, but what is
The social intentions of this budget is of the 70.8%, 77.8%. And I stop here to compare what was the budget of the Fourth Republic, in which the investment was not a social investment but a social expense, and never overcome the 40%. Here is the difference in the vision, and as I was mentioning, we are not a government, no. We are the expression of what the popular power is, of the people of Venezuela organized that have launched the most strong battles in the defense of this homeland and maintains this country victorious and indestructible. And in 2024, the social investment represented a 77.4%, and also in the current year a 77.6%, and for the 2026 year it is expected as 77.8%. But the priority of this budget in this social investment is precisely the social development and participation, almost a 30%. In infrastructure, in education, in health, in security, in household, in communicational, culture, in science and technology, in the defense of the Essequibo, as you just approved 2 years ago in this very National Assembly, in the Fund of Compensation Interterritorial, and the most important aspect of all, the participation in the budget. As an experience unprecedented ever since last year in the popular consultations, we have voted, the people have voted through assemblies to decide where this budget goes to, if it's in stairs, in facades, in roofs, in drinking water, in transportation, in projects for the youth. It doesn't matter which one. The people has voted 33,200 projects and has accumulated an amount of $262 million in direct investment in the peoples on those projects elected by the people. So, dear deputies, women and men, it is expected in this budget, as I was mentioning, projects in the economic field with 31%, in humane cities and social services, that is also analyzed in the debt of the financial year for 2026, in policies 10%, in eco-socialism 8.9%, in geopolitics 1.6%, security and defense 5.5%. That's the project that is going to be into effect from a territorial vision and from a participatory and protagonistic vision of the people of Venezuela through the state of the communal state, where the projects are going to be directed, and also the projects of 2026 are going to be concentrated in the concrete agenda of education, household, energy, water, work, social works, defense. Those are the needs, fundamental needs and essential needs of our people. You will see, you'll never be seen there unprioritized aspects. What it is being voted is for the life of the people, the happiness of the people, is for the facilities of our people, the benefit of our people in the territories. And this budget for 2026 also includes the resources required for the security and for the defense of Venezuela, for the defense of our territorial integrity, for the defense of the national sovereignty, and the most important of all, for the defense of our dignity, historic dignity. No one is going to surrender here, and no one is going to take any other path than of those who never failed, Venezuelans, of those who handed over their historical patrimony, for those who compromised their nationality and their names. I say, as Bolívar said, let's unite and we're going to be invincible. United, not even the whole world is going to be able to defeat us. Deputies, women and men. We have no parties. What we are is Venezuelans, true Venezuelans, Venezuelans by heart, Venezuelans with conscience. Thank you very much, deputies, women and men. I ask for your greatest collaboration for this budget be approved for the year 2026. Greetings for all. The extraordinary phrase presented by the Executive Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodríguez, in this ordinary session, in which she has been announcing that the 77.6% of the budget is going to be allocated for the people of Venezuela. She also mentioned the positive achievements of the economy, of the national economy, in spite of the actions of the U.S. against the people of Venezuela. In this context, the people of Venezuela precisely hasn't stopped working, and also Venezuela has been moving forward, has been increasing its purchasing power and also its budget, and has been allocating it for the benefit of the people. Let's listen. The struggle of the people of Venezuela has signified, along with the leadership of President Nicolás Maduro Moros, the struggle against the hegemony of the imperialism, and all of those who do not find themselves being Venezuelans to surrender to the calls of imperialism. It is a recount. It is not a cold recount. It is also the expression, vibrant expression of the strength of the people of Venezuela. If we can take out any positive achievement from the most brutal harassment and aggressions to which Venezuelan people have been subjected to in the past 50 years, if we could mention and see one positive aspect would be that today we are stronger than ever, wiser than ever, and tough women and men, and now we are more free and independent. And in second place, to see
cómo
how
estamos tercamente
we are
empeñados en el
stubborn
futuro.
in our willingness
Porque
to
revisando
build up
las
our
palabras de la
future, because
vicepresidenta Rodríguez,
analyzing the
uno
words
nota
of Vice President
cómo
Delcy
ella se
Rodríguez, you can
prefigura
see how she
el futuro
thinks
de la patria
about the
toda.
future of the
Una
whole
patria con una
homeland, a
economía
homeland with
recuperada, pero al
a
mismo tiempo
recovery
con una
economy, but
economía
also
real.
with a
Una
true,
patria con una
real
industria
economy, with
petrolera
an oil
absolutamente
industry
independiente y
absolutely
soberana,
independent and
pero también
sovereign, but
recuperada.
also
Recuperada de la agresión
recovered
externa
from the
y de los
external
traidores
aggressions
internos.
and the
Una
internal
patria
traitors,
que se
a
afinca en una
homeland that is
democracia
upon
verdadera,
um,
que es la
true
democracia
democracy,
del
which is
futuro,
the
que es ya,
democracy of the future
que es la
that is
democracia de las
already
6.000
present,
comunas,
the
que es la democracia
democracy
de
of the
las consultas,
6,000 communes,
que
of the
es la democracia de los
consultations,
proyectos
of the
floreciendo por miles
flourishing
en los
projects
barrios y en las
inside the
urbanizaciones de cada uno.
communities
Yo
of
quisiera
Venezuela. I
exhortar
would
luego las
like
palabras de la
to
vicepresidenta Rodríguez
offer the
y
floor and to
cuando vayamos a la
also
discusión del
when we move on
proyecto
to
de
the
ley del
discussion of the
endeudamiento, que además el
project
nombre es
of
como lioso, deberíamos
the
cambiarlo,
annual debt
no
for
llamarla
the
más ley de
2026
endeudamiento, sino ley de
financial year,
compromiso
and
o ley
we
de,
should
así
change
como
that name for
cambiamos
compromise
llamado
bill,
gasto
as we
social por la
also
inversión
changed
social
the
en tiempos de revolución.
social
Esa bendita ley de
expenses.
endeudamiento. Ahorita va a salir Correa. No,
This
eso está en la Constitución.
there's
Ojalá que no.
also
Si
going
no
to
está en la
be
Constitución,
statements.
cambiémosle el nombre a
We
esa
need to
bendita
change
ley y
this
busquemos
the name of
otro
this
nombre que se
law
parezca más
and
a
to
cuál es la intención. Y la
to
intención real
change it for a
es
name that is
dibujar
more
desde el
alike of the
punto de
people of
vista del
Venezuela,
diseño
from the
del presupuesto
design
que lo
and
diseñó el pueblo
this
de Venezuela, cuál
this
será el futuro de
this
la
bill
patria en el
has been
año
designed
2026.
by the people of
Exhorto entonces,
Venezuela.
diputadas y
So
diputados, a
I
que
call
hagamos una
you
discusión profunda
to make a
de la
deep
propuesta que trae el gobierno
deep
bolivariano del presidente Maduro el
discussion
día de
of the
hoy y
proposal
aprobemos con
that
celeridad
has been
esa ley.
shared for us
Gracias
from
a la
the President
vicepresidenta
Nicolás
ejecutiva
Maduro.
Delcy
Thank you,
Rodríguez.
Delcy
Agradecemos
Rodríguez.
también
And also we
al
thank
presidente
President
Nicolás Maduro que puso a
Nicolás Maduro Moros that
disposición de la
put at the
Asamblea Nacional a las
disposition
vicepresidentas,
of the National
vicepresidentes
Assembly,
y
the Executive Vice President of
ministros y
Venezuela,
altos
also
funcionarios
ministers and high
encargados
officials
de
in
las
charge
finanzas,
of
del
the
presupuesto
finances and
y de la
the
economía del
budget
país
and the
para que
economy of the
vinieran a hacer
country to
esa
come here to
presentación
prepare
el
this
día de hoy.
presentation today. And
Agradeciéndoles
we thank as
también la
well
presencia
the
aquí.
presence
Queremos informar
here,
que
and I want
en
to
consecuencia
inform
para
that
que
in
la Asamblea Nacional
consequence for the
dé la
National
discusión
Assembly
se
to
retiran
offer this
nuestros
discussion,
invitados especiales.
our
Los
special
de la
guests
congreso pueden
need
quedar
to
si quieren.
leave. Deputies can remain here. Well, we can see at this hour, we are seeing live images of this ordinary session of the National Assembly with key informations for the people of Venezuela. At this hour, we can see that the deputies were set to approve a special bill on the annual debt for the 2026 financial year, and in this context we were listening to the statements of the Executive Vice President, who is also the Sectorial Vice President of the Economy, Delcy Rodríguez, in a statement in which she assured that the Venezuelan economy remains stable despite the U.S. actions, the U.S. aggressions and threats. The high official also reaffirmed that Venezuela keeps defending its truth in the face of lies, of all of the lies spread by the U.S. to justify an invasion in the country that has no other purpose but seizing Venezuela's natural resources, such as its oil reserves. Venezuela, in this context, keeps moving forward. This is all for the moment. Stay tuned with teleSUR English for more information on this key event for Venezuelans.